The world is not what you think it is. There's a dividing line running through society that most people never see, and it has nothing to do with how much money you were born into. It has nothing to do with your education, your connections, or even how smart you are. The line that separates people who build wealth from people who stay trapped in the hamster wheel is invisible. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And here's the uncomfortable part. You're probably on the wrong side of it right now. I know that sounds harsh, but stay with me, because what I'm about to show you is the single most important mental shift you can make if you want any chance of financial freedom. And the really messed up part is that nobody teaches you this. Not your parents, not school, not the financial advisors who are supposed to help you. They're all operating from the same broken framework, and they're passing it down to you like it's gospel. So let me start by asking you something. When you think about getting wealthy, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Be honest. For most people, it's some version of this. Work harder, get a better job, save more money, invest in a 401k, maybe start a side hustle. It's all about trading your time and effort for money, then being smart about where that money goes. Right? That's the plan. That's what everyone tells you. Grind now so you can relax later. But here's what nobody tells you. That entire framework? It's a trap. And the people who get truly wealthy, the ones who actually build empires and generate serious wealth, they're not playing that game at all. They figured out something different. Something so fundamentally different that it might as well be a different sport entirely. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine two people, both starting with nothing. Let's call them Sarah and Marcus. Sarah follows the traditional path. She works incredibly hard. She's disciplined. She saves 15% of her income. She maxes out her retirement accounts. She does everything right according to conventional wisdom. Marcus, on the other hand, seems to do everything wrong. He barely saves anything. He takes massive risks. He pours money into projects that might completely fail. From the outside, Sarah looks responsible, and Marcus looks reckless. Fast forward 20 years, Sarah has built a respectable nest egg, maybe $500,000 if she was really disciplined. She's proud of it, and she should be. But Marcus is worth $50 million. What? And here's the thing that will make you angry. Marcus didn't work harder than Sarah. He probably worked less. He didn't sacrifice more. He didn't have better luck. So what happened? What's the difference? The difference is that Sarah was playing a game called accumulation, and Marcus was playing a completely different game called multiplication. And until you understand this distinction, you will never ever break free from financial mediocrity. This is the secret that divides the wealthy from everyone else, and it's hiding in plain sight. Let me explain what I mean by accumulation versus multiplication. When you're in accumulation mode, your entire financial life is about addition. You add income, you subtract expenses, you save the difference. It's linear, it's predictable, it's safe. Every dollar you make is a dollar you earned through your own time and effort. You're thinking, how can I get more dollars? How can I keep more dollars? How can I grow the dollars I have by small percentages each year? But multiplication is something entirely different. Multiplication is about leverage. It's about building systems, assets, and entities that generate value independent of your time. It's about creating something once that pays you over and over again. It's about using other people's time, other people's money, other people's ideas, and combining them in ways that produce geometric returns instead of linear ones. Here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to hear. You cannot accumulate your way to real wealth. The math doesn't work. Even if you make $200,000 a year, which is more than 90% of people, and even if you save half of it, which almost nobody does, you're looking at maybe $5 million by retirement. If you invest well, that's good, that's security. But it's not wealth, it's not freedom, and it required you to sacrifice the best decades of your life. The people who get truly wealthy, they understand something that sounds almost offensive when you first hear it. They understand that your time is the least valuable resource you have. I know that sounds crazy. You've been told your whole life that time is precious, that it's the only thing you can't get back. And that's true for living your life. But for building wealth, your time is the bottleneck. Your time is the ceiling. As long as you're trading time for money, you're capped. There are only so many hours in a day, only so many years you can work, only so much energy you have. Wealthy people realize this early, and they make a fundamental shift. They stop asking, how can I make more money, and start asking, how can I build a money-making machine? They stop being the engine and start building the car. They stop being the worker and become the architect of systems that do the work. And this is where it gets really interesting, because this shift requires you to completely rewire how you think about value, about work, about risk, and about yourself. Let me break down what this actually looks like in practice, because this is where most people get confused. Think about value creation for a second. Most people think value creation means working hard and delivering a service or product. You do good work, you get paid, everyone's happy. That's fair exchange, right? But wealthy people think about value creation completely differently. They think about scalability. They ask, can this value be created once and sold 1,000 times? Can this value be systematized so someone else can deliver it? Can this value compound and grow beyond my direct involvement? Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you're an incredible graphic designer. You can charge $200 an hour, and you're booked solid. You're making good money. You're in demand, but you're still in accumulation mode, because every dollar requires an hour of your life. Now, imagine instead, you create a course teaching graphic design, you build a template library that designers can license, you start a YouTube channel that generates ad revenue, you create a software tool that automates part of the design process. Suddenly you're in multiplication mode. You created value once, but it keeps generating returns. Your income is no longer tied to your hours. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Making this shift requires you to do something that feels completely wrong. It requires you to invest time and money and energy into things that might not pay off immediately, or might not pay off at all. It requires you to turn down guaranteed money now for the possibility of massive money later. It requires you to be okay with failure, with uncertainty, with people thinking you're making bad decisions. Sarah was never willing to do that. She needed the security of the paycheck. She needed to know that her effort would definitely result in income, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a completely rational response to living in an uncertain world. But it's also the exact thing that keeps most people trapped. Marcus was willing to be irrational. He was willing to look stupid. He was willing to invest 6 months building something that might generate $0. And most of the time it did generate $0. But when it worked, when he built something that actually scaled, the returns were so asymmetric that it wiped out all the failures and then some. This is what wealthy people understand about risk, that poor and middle-class people get completely backwards. Poor and middle-class people think the risky thing is to start a business, or invest in assets, or build something new. They think the safe thing is to get a stable job and save money. But wealthy people see it exactly opposite. They think the risky thing is to have one source of income controlled by someone else who can fire you at any moment. They think the risky thing is to spend 40 years building someone else's dream instead of your own. They think the risky thing is to be completely dependent on your own labor when your labor can be eliminated by health issues, age, or economic shifts. Wealthy people de-risk their lives by building multiple income streams, by owning assets, by creating systems. Yes, each individual venture might fail, but the portfolio approach means they're actually far more secure than someone with one job and one income stream. And this brings me to something really important that you need to understand. This multiplication mindset isn't about being greedy. It's not about being materialistic or obsessed with money. It's actually about buying back your time and your freedom. Because here's the irony. The people who are obsessed with money are the ones in accumulation mode. They're thinking about it constantly because they have to trade their life for it every single day. The people in multiplication mode, they build the systems once, and then the money becomes almost an afterthought. They're free to focus on what actually matters to them. Think about this. Who's more focused on money? The person working 60 hours a week to make ends meet, constantly stressed about bills and budgets. Or the person who built businesses and assets that generate passive income while they spend time with their kids or work on projects they care about. The person trapped in accumulation mode is a slave to money. The person in multiplication mode has made money work for them. But here's where I need to be really honest with you about something uncomfortable. About making the shift is psychologically brutal. It goes against every instinct you've developed. You've been trained since childhood to value certainty, to avoid risk, to follow the proven path. You've been trained to be a good employee, a reliable cog in someone else's machine. And those instincts served you well for getting through school and landing your first job. But now they're handcuffs. Post endole terhand. Pole conpexum semsux perhound. To move from accumulation to multiplication, you have to be willing to experience serious discomfort. You have to be willing to turn down money. You have to be willing to have less in the short term to have more in the long term. You have to be willing to work on things that your friends and family think are stupid. You have to be willing to fail publicly, repeatedly, and keep going. Most people can't do this, and I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying it because it's true, and you need to know what you're up against. Most people will choose the certainty of mediocrity over the uncertainty of greatness every single time. They'll choose the comfortable prison over the difficult freedom. And our entire society is designed to keep you in accumulation mode. Think about it. The entire financial services industry is built around accumulation. Save more, invest in index funds, dollar cost average, diversify, be patient. It's all about slow, steady, predictable growth. And again, there's nothing wrong with that as a baseline. But it's not how wealth is actually built. It's how wealth is preserved once you already have it. The tax system is designed to favor multiplication over accumulation. If you make money from a job, you get taxed at the highest rates. But if you make money from businesses, investments, and assets, you get taxed at much lower rates, or sometimes not at all. The system is literally telling you, stop trading time for money. But nobody explains this to you clearly. But even the way we talk about money keeps people trapped. And we say earn a living as if you have to continually earn the right to exist. We say make money as if you're physically creating it with your hands. We say save for retirement as if the goal is to hoard enough to stop working when you're old. All of this language reinforces accumulation thinking. Wealthy people use completely different language. They talk about building equity, creating assets, generating cash flow, scaling systems, multiplying capital. It's a totally different vocabulary because it's a totally different game. So let me tell you what the actual mindset shift looks like, the one that separates wealthy people from everyone else. It's this. Wealthy people see themselves as builders and investors, not workers. They see their time and energy as capital to be invested in building assets, not as labor to be sold for wages. They see opportunities everywhere because they're looking for multiplication possibilities, not just income opportunities. They're constantly asking, what can I build, buy, or create that will generate value beyond my direct involvement? This shift changes everything. When you see yourself as a builder, you start looking at every skill you have as a potential asset you can systematize. You start looking at every problem you encounter as a potential business opportunity. You start looking at your money not as something to spend or save, but as ammunition to acquire more assets. Let me give you a practical example of how this plays out. Imagine you have $10,000 saved. Accumulation mindset says, put it in a high-yield savings account or maybe an index fund. Grow it slowly and safely. That's what a responsible person does. Multiplication mindset says, what asset can I acquire with this money? What business can I start? What skill can I learn that will pay back 10 times this amount? What investment opportunity exists that I can leverage? Now, I'm not saying you should gamble your savings on stupid ideas. That's not what this is about. But wealthy people understand that money sitting in savings is actually losing value to inflation, while simultaneously representing lost opportunity. That money could be working, could be building, could be multiplying. So they're constantly deploying capital into assets and opportunities, even if those opportunities carry risk. And here's something crucial about how wealthy people think about failure. They expect it, they budget for it, they know that most of their ventures won't work out. But they also know that they only need a few to work out massively to win the game overall. This is portfolio thinking applied to life. You don't need a 100% success rate. You need asymmetric returns where your winners pay for all your losers, and then create massive surplus. Poor and middle-class people can't afford to think this way, or at least they believe they can't, because they're operating with such thin margins. They can't afford a failure because they have no buffer, no other income streams to fall back on. So they become even more risk-averse, even more trapped in accumulation mode, even more dependent on that single paycheck. It's a vicious cycle. Breaking the cycle requires you to do something that sounds impossible when you're in the middle of it. You have to create slack, you have to build buffer. You have to get yourself to a place where you can take a swing and miss without it destroying your life. And yes, this is incredibly hard when you're living paycheck to paycheck, but it's also the only way out. This might mean living below your means in the short term so you can build up capital. It might mean taking a second job temporarily not to increase your lifestyle, but to create investment capital. It might mean making sacrifices that feel wrong in the moment because you're so used to immediate consumption. But wealthy people understand delayed gratification at a level that most people never access. They're willing to live like nobody else now, so they can live like nobody else later. And here's something that might make you angry. Wealthy people also understand that the system is rigged in their favor once they make this shift. Once you have assets generating income, once you have systems in place, the game gets easier. Your money makes money, which makes more money. You have access to better deals, better opportunities, better information. You can take bigger risks, because you have more cushion. The rich really do get richer, not because they're better people, but because they're playing a different game with different rules. But here's what gives me hope, and why I'm telling you all this. You can switch games. It's hard, but it's possible. You can make the shift from accumulation to multiplication at any point in your life. It just requires you to see the game clearly and make a decision about which one you want to play. Let me tell you what this looks like practically. First, you have to audit your life and ask, where am I trading time for money in a linear way? Where am I working harder instead of smarter? Where am I building someone else's dream instead of my own? Be brutally honest about this because you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. Second, you have to start thinking like an investor in yourself. And every hour you spend, ask, is this building an asset or just generating immediate income? Every dollar you spend, ask, is this consumption or investment? Every opportunity you encounter, ask, does this scale or does it just add to my workload? Third, you have to get comfortable with creation and ownership instead of just execution. This is huge. Most people are really good at doing what they're told, at executing tasks, at being reliable workers. But wealthy people create things, they own things, they build things that other people execute. You have to make the shift from being the best employee to being the owner, even if you start as an owner of very small things. Fourth, you have to embrace leverage in all its forms. Leverage means using resources beyond just your own time and money. It means using other people's time by building teams or delegating. Or it means using other people's money through investors or loans. It means using technology to automate and scale. It means using your reputation and network to open doors. Wealthy people are leverage addicts in the best sense. They're constantly looking for ways to amplify their effort. Fifth, you have to change your relationship with failure. Every wealthy person I've studied has a graveyard of failed projects behind them. But they don't see those as failures. They see them as tuition. They see them as necessary experiments. They see them as the cost of eventually finding something that works massively. You have to get comfortable with trying things that might not work. Sixth, you have to think in decades, not months. The accumulation mindset is always short-term focused because you need that next paycheck. The multiplication mindset is long-term focused because you're building something that might take years to pay off, but will then pay off for decades. Wealthy people are playing an infinite game. They're building things that outlast them, that generate value for their kids and grandkids. And here's something really important. This isn't about becoming a workaholic or sacrificing your life for money. It's actually the opposite. The multiplication mindset is about working intensely on the right things for a concentrated period, so that you can then have freedom forever. It's about building the machine, so the machine can run without you. The saddest thing I see is people who work incredibly hard their entire lives, but never make this shift. They're dedicated, they're skilled, they're disciplined. But they're running on a treadmill that goes nowhere because they never stepped off to build something different. They confused activity with progress. They confused effort with strategy. So here's what I need you to understand. You're at a fork in the road right now. One path is familiar. It's the accumulation path. It's safe, it's predictable, it's what everyone tells you to do. You work hard, you save what you can, you hope it's enough, and maybe it will be enough for a modest retirement if nothing goes wrong. That's one possible future. The other path is multiplication. It's uncertain. It's uncomfortable. It requires you to think differently, act differently, be willing to look stupid and fail, and keep going anyway. It requires you to invest in yourself and your ideas and your vision, even when nobody else believes in them. But this path, if you stick with it, if you really commit to building assets and systems and leverage, this path leads to actual wealth, to freedom, to options, to a life where money is no longer your master. Most people will choose the first path because it feels safer, but it's not actually safer. It's just a slower, more socially acceptable way to stay trapped. The real risk is spending 40 years building someone else's fortune instead of your own. The real risk is waking up at 65 and realizing you have just enough money to survive, but not enough to truly live. I'm not telling you to quit your job tomorrow and start some wild business with no plan. That's not what this is about. But I am telling you to start making the mental shift right now. Start seeing yourself differently. Start looking for multiplication opportunities. Start building something, anything, that can generate value beyond your direct time investment. Maybe it's creating content. Maybe it's building a small business on the side. Maybe it's investing in real estate. Maybe it's developing a product or service. Maybe it's learning skills that allow you to command higher rates, and then systematizing those skills so others can deliver them. There are 1,000 paths to multiplication. The point is to pick one and start walking. And here's the thing that wealthy people know that will change everything for you. You don't have to get it right the first time. You don't have to hit a home run on your first swing. You just have to start swinging. You have to start playing the multiplication game, even in small ways, even when you're scared, even when it's hard. Because every attempt teaches you something. Every failure gives you information. Every small win builds momentum. The separation between wealthy people and everyone else isn't intelligence or talent or luck. It's this willingness to play a different game, to think in terms of systems and assets and leverage instead of hours and wages, to be comfortable with uncertainty in service of a bigger vision. To delay gratification, not out of miserliness, but out of strategic thinking. You have everything you need to make this shift. You have intelligence. You have skills. You have access to more information and tools than any generation in history. What you might not have is permission to think differently, to want more, to believe you can build wealth instead of just accumulating savings. So, let me give you that permission right now. You're allowed to want this. You're allowed to play the wealth building game instead of just the getting by game. The question is, will you? Will you make the shift, or will you stay comfortable? Will you build your own machine, or keep being a cog in someone else's? Will you trade short-term certainty for long-term freedom, or stay trapped in the cycle of trading time for money until time runs out? The world is divided into people who accumulate and people who multiply. Now that you see the line, which side will you choose? Because I promise you, 5 years from now, you'll either be grateful you made this shift or regretful that you didn't. The only thing you can't do is pretend you don't know. You know now. The question is whether you'll act on it